The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Now on a certain Sabbath day, Jesus went into the synagogue and taught. And there was a man there whose right hand was withered. Some of the scribes and Pharisees watched Jesus closely to see if he would cure on the Sabbath day, so that they might discover a reason to accuse him. But Jesus realized their intentions and said to the one with the withered hand, "Come up and stand before us." The man rose and stood there. Then Jesus said to everyone, "I ask you, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath rather than to do evil, to save life rather than destroy it?" And looking around at them all, he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." The man did so, and his hand was restored. But they became enraged and discussed together what they might do to Jesus. The Gospel of the Lord. If we put ourselves into that gospel story, I think the natural inclination to say, how silly. Here someone gets a chance to be healed, and let's rejoice on it. It doesn't matter if it was in church or temple, whether it was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we'd be happy for that person, and we would rejoice. And so it seems odd that on something they would want to have kind of a rule be higher than healing that person. But at the same time, it is amazing, isn't it, how we as a whole, that we miss sometimes that how the gospel invites us to a certain kind of life, and we live sometimes with this gap between what we know is right and yet we don't seem to be able to fully put into practice in our lives or in this world. On this feast day of St. Peter Claver, as he ministered amongst the new immigrants from Africa, the new slaves from Africa who were forced there and who were in horrible conditions, and many of them died on the way, of course. And so they come off the boat just malnourished, in rags, naked, just been in the holds of ships. They didn't really care whether half of them died or not. And he and some of his cohorts would go and take care of them right from that moment on. And they didn't know the language necessarily right away. But the slaves actually, many of them thought that they're going to a land that they're going to be offered up for sacrifice, that they're actually going to be eaten by some people and stuff like that. So they were just fearful. They would just touch them, and they were smelly, they were dirty, they were ill, they were with all sorts. They would touch them. They would put oil on. They use all their money to have certain kind of a healing kind of spices and so forth. They would try to get them washed, and they would wash them by hand themselves. And they would take care of them. And because of that, you think that that'd be admired, right? That's an admirable thing to do. His fellow Christians didn't like that. Refused to let Peter Claver and people who became Christian because of his ministry into their churches. Churches that oh no, you don't come through this door of this church. We're good people. We have good clothes on. We can't have that kind of person come through this church. It's amazing that how could and they were good Christians. I don't want to. These are not like awful people, bad people that we would say, man, they are really bad people. They're us. They're good Christians who went to church every Sunday, who tithe who were generous with their money, who set up all sorts of charities and so forth. Yet they didn't. But when it came right down to kind of rubber meets the road, they failed the test, right? And so for me, I think David, you wouldn't. I say, oh yeah, I would. I think I would, because I get tired, or I get fearful, or especially get fearful of what God wants to ask of me. Because if I kind of give in to God this far, and say, he says, well, David, you can do a little better here, and there. If I give in to God this far, he might ask me to go this far. It's like, I'm happy to go this far, But then I want my time to watch the Lions. I want my time to have kind of have friends over, and I want my time to be able to go shopping and get my food that I want and the clothes that I want. And I want my time for kind of my family, and I want my time. For me, it has to do a lot with I want my time, as you can hear. But I want to go this far, Lord. But if into that midst comes something where that gets disrupted, would I be someone to say, Oh, okay, maybe tomorrow. Oh, you guys are good. Let's deal with you. Or would I say, oh, that's the Lord inviting me to that next step? It's hard, I think, to do that in a consistent way. We know we fall short of that. We know none of us are perfect. And hopefully none of us be so bad as to turn away from someone truly in need. I mean, we wouldn't be that bad. But there are in little ways we could all recognize that kind of that pull to kind of come back into just what's comfortable for us, what suits us, what is good for, and we're good people, and we tithe, and we go to church, and we're good people, but we can kind of draw in, and so let's always be open to that next step, to that kind of being pulled out of it. That's what is making Jesus so upset about. He knows the beauty of the faith of the Jewish people. He knows the beauty of the covenant they have with God. He knows the healing that can come to the people, and yet they're drawing themselves into a kind of a closed space where they don't even want to experience it because they're comfortable with the kind of the externals that they have. Let's have the externals. Let's appreciate all the externals that we have. But in the end, when the push comes to shove, when rubber hits the road, we have to put into practice our faith. It's not enough just to have faith and to say we're good at faith and we're charitable toward others if we're not in concrete ways putting that into practice.